We brought our oldest child to college. One thing that was kind of a big deal was the size of her dorm room. I couldn't help but reflect, what is enough? Why have we come to a place of stuff and fillers? Perhaps what we could take away from our pandemic is less stuff, more moments.
My grandmother, just a lovely, lovely woman. She was really big about spending time with her people.
I would purposefully turn off the radio and drive in silence.
I decided to take myself out on a date tonight. You got the giggle.
Go date yourself.
Yeah, go date.
I love it.
I would say I'd ask myself out on a second date too. I don't know. We had a good time.
My beloved, strong parents, their answer always was, we're fine. We've got enough. Enough is a choice. You get to decide what is enough.
Enough already. Welcome to Simply Enough. This is Zachary and Elizabeth, and thanks for tuning in.
If you're liking our podcast, we'd love it if you'd share with your friends and family.
And then rate and review to raise our visibility and spread the message of enoughness.
We love you, and remember, you are simply enough.
Just as you are.
Period.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Simply Enough. I'm Mr. Zachary Leonard.
And I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ignacio.
We are so glad you are with us. Dr. Ignacio, I have heard from a couple friends lately that were traveling this summer, or they were abroad, or they were enjoying some vacation, and they're just getting caught up with Simply Enough after being away and enjoying life in other ways, not just listening to us. So they were looking at some of our previous episodes and like, man, we feel a little bit behind. And I said to them, you're not behind. Like, that's the beautiful thing. You can just drop back in and come back and join us Simply Enough, because we're here and we're glad that you're here. And there's no time like right now. So to all of you that are listening, if you're new, welcome to the Simply Enough journey.
Welcome, everybody.
And to our seasoned listeners, thank you for coming back. And if you are just joining us in this episode and maybe you have a few that you haven't listened to yet, hey, great. Thanks for coming back today. So excited.
And if any of the episodes resonate, please do share the episodes with your friends, with your coworkers, with your family, with your kids. Please share to spread the message of Simply Enough.
Absolutely. I have to say, and this perhaps may sound a little bit boastful, but I've been going back and listening to our episodes as well. And I got to be honest, there's some juicy stuff in there. Like, y'all, help us get this message out, because we have really been hitting on some very relevant topics, particularly for myself, and I know for you. And I think we're going to get into something like that again today. But I've just gotten a couple calls from friends of mine that said, I can't believe the timing of the themes of some of your episodes, because they've been so relevant to things that have happened or were going to happen in their life. So please help us spread this message, because we're getting really good feedback that the Simply Enough message is not just for our small listeners, but really for everybody. So yeah,
we're grateful for you all listening and viewing, and we're grateful for the comments and the feedback. So again, share any of our episodes, as well as, if you wouldn't mind clicking on the subscribe for YouTube. And even if you're listening to us right now in audio podcast, if you wouldn't mind going to YouTube just to subscribe, that actually really helps spread the message, as well as rating and reviewing our audio podcast too. Thanks everybody for allowing us this commercial.
And I will say, I'm going to put this out there. I am going to really try to do improved job of laughing out loud for our listeners that are just joining us for the first time. Zachary, myself, I have a tendency to do a silent laugh. So there will be pauses in the recording where it's like, what is going on? Who's talking? Why is there just this empty silence? And chances are Dr. Ignacio said something particularly hysterical, and then I'm laughing, but all you hear is
exactly.
So silently. Oh gosh. Anyway, yes.
So I hope this has not become an old theme, but it's just so present in my life right now. But we've talked a lot about these recent episodes of the fact that the cord has been cut, the Band-Aid has been ripped, and we brought our oldest child to college, 5,000 miles away. It's funny though, because clearly this is a major milestone in my life, in my daughter's life, in my family's life. And so it's funny that there's a lot of thoughts and themes that come up to ponder and reflection. And one thing that was kind of a big deal, unfortunately, but was kind of a big deal in the bringing of our daughter to college was the size of her dorm room. So he does have, admittedly, a very small dorm room that she shares with her wonderful roommate. And initially, there's a lot of lamenting about the size of the dorm room, and even maybe panic is a strong word, but a lot of worry and concern of, what's that going to be like, and how is everything going to fit? And I couldn't help but think to myself, and I did advise my daughter that, okay, she's literally going to one of the oldest schools in the United States, literally by age. And so obviously, it being one of the oldest schools in the United States, the size of the dorm room way back in the 1700s, the size of the dorm room then was probably adequate, or even more than adequate. But to our eyes and lifestyles feels impossibly small. I couldn't help but reflect and think, for our Simply Enough podcast, what is enough? Why is it that we have come to a place of consumerism in terms of stuff and fillers? And whether it's that we try to fill our lives with purchasing stuff, or we, try to fill our lives and fill the void and fill the emptiness with stuff, or with alcohol, or with food, or with even seemingly good things like exercise. There is pathology in terms of over-exercise, or even, dare I say it, on a podcast, even filling silence with the need to always be listening to something, or watching something, or scrolling something. So why the need for all this stuff, when really perhaps what we could have a takeaway from this time of our pandemic is less stuff, more moments, less stuff, more memories, less stuff, more space and grace of being with oneself, as opposed to filling the void. Is that a reach?
No, I love the beginning where I can imagine our listeners were like, where's she going to go with this? Dorm room to Simply Enough. But this is such a pivotal moment for your family, for your daughter. And I think many of our parents can certainly relate to this kind of journey. You've watched your daughter grow up, and now, she's going on to the next big adventure. And so for us to have just the blessing of being able to participate in this with you, I think is a huge gift. And then for you to be able to find ways to share that into messages that connect with Simply Enough, I'm in for like more weeks of this if you want to keep going.
Not me. It's heart-wrenching.
I know,
everybody.
I can imagine.
No, I'm just joking.
But what I wanted to say was, for whatever reason on my Instagram feed, and it must have to do with something that I've been searching lately, but I have been getting a lot of advertisements for renovated Sprinter vans or camper vans. No joke. And so I'll follow along, right? These look kind of fascinating. These little vans that have the kitchens and the beds and everything like that. And I followed this family, this married couple, straight couple with a small child, who decided during the pandemic, they were going to sell their house and they were going to declutter. They were going to remove the clutter, to your point. And what was fascinating, they documented this. They were really very generous in the way that they invited us into this story, which I was grateful, because the part that was the most interesting to me is exactly what you're talking about. Was they went through almost every item in their house and had to decide, is it going to fit in the 150 square foot van that they had? Or do they have to get rid of it and sell it? And just the process of watching people go through their connection to stuff, I think, is an incredibly strong message to bring out on Simply Enough today. So I'm so glad that you brought it up today. Like legit.
Yay.
Because what I couldn't help but take away from watching this couple really downsize their life was they would pick up something, let's say it was a blanket. There wasn't really enough room for the blanket because they'd already had another blanket. And what they would literally say is, we are giving up this blanket to be able to drive around the world and see the national parks, or go to the beach, or go to this event, or go here. So they were driving a narrative of, we're getting rid of stuff for experiences.
Yes. Yes.
Literally
Moments
what you're
and
talking about. It.
memories.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. It's addition by subtraction. There is really something to be said in terms of less can be more.
Mm-hmm.
Again, more moments, more memories, more experiences. And, there's multiple psychological studies that have shown that the circumstantial happiness of possessions is very ephemeral, very short-lived. And it's actually the ability to call back upon the emotions and the feelings of moments and experiences that is far more sustaining relative to joy. And the fillers, whether it's stuff, actual physical possessions and shopaholics and that kind of thing in terms of filling a void, or again, whether it's alcohol to numb whatever one might not want to experience, or emotional eating to again numb or fill a void as opposed to experiencing the void. That is where one isn't sitting in the previous episode, sitting in the moment, and not to dwell in it and abide in whatever uncomfortable feeling one might have, but to at least feel the feels, experience it, and move through it, and then move on to something different. So rather than this buffering and this fillers of more stuff, more noise, more binge watching on TV, more scrolling on the phone, less is more. Enough already. Sometimes we just have to kind of give ourselves space and grace, observe without judgment, and just say, enough already. What is enough? And I shouldn't say harkening back to the pandemic. I mean, we're still in the endemic phase. We're not fully out, but I hope and pray that the heat of the pandemic is behind us. But I remember like March of 2020, and especially you remember, Zachary, because you were still living here, on an island. This is where, perhaps people on the continental US might not quite grasp what it's like living on an island, and that fear and concern of the supply chain truly being disrupted, because it's happened in times of hurricanes, for example, where there truly is toilet paper hoarding and spam hoarding and all the Clorox wiping hoarding and all that kind of stuff. And bottled water. Exactly. Yeah. And that literally, I know everybody, even on the continental US, experienced that, but there is literally a deeper sense of fear and urgency living on an island, because what might be a disrupted supply chain for days on the continent can literally be weeks and even months living on an island. Anyway, that's a long story, but I just remember, and then of course my beloved, strong parents of the war, war generation, right? And I think that's important to say, but they had to hunker down in the very beginning of the pandemic, especially, right? So they're literally like holed up in their house. And so I would check on them, to see if they needed anything. And, it's amazing. Their answer always was, no, we're fine. We have enough. I couldn't believe that in this flurry of activity of the rest of us hoarding, myself included, I'm not judging. I was guilty of hoarding
right
Clorox wipes and paper towel. They, with a sure sense of calm and serenity and faith instead of fear, said, no, we're fine. We've got enough. And it made me think, wow, what peace and serenity comes from this centered place of enoughness, this place of, if not abundance, enoughness, certainly not from a place of lack and scarcity. How peaceful and centered that is. And it reminded me of a saying that I'm going to paraphrase again. I'm going to murder it, but it really resonates, which is, what is enough? Enough is, first of all, a choice. You get to decide what is enough, and enough can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, a friend into family. That is the power of enoughness and choosing enoughness. And one has control over what one thinks is enough. And there's this, it's like the hedonistic hamster wheel where nothing is enough and, more is more. And the goalpost just keeps getting, just keeps moving in terms of the accumulation and the keeping up with the Joneses and the more stuff, more stuff, more stuff, and even more money, more money, more money. Yet everybody knows the adage, but might not truly believe it. But it is true. Money doesn't buy happiness, right?
Yes.
Rich people can be so poor if all they have is money.
Yeah. When you were talking about your parents and your parents during the pandemic saying we have enough, prior to that, you had said enough already. And then your parents saying we've got enough. It made me think of the moments with my grandmother. So my dad's mom, as she was getting older, and she was a beloved matriarch of this family. She had 7 kids. She was one of the first like big families in the area where she raised her family. They raised their family, Catholic family, 7 children, 28 grandchildren, however many great grandchildren. Yeah. And just a lovely, lovely woman. As she started to get older, there was always a question around her birthday or around Christmas, like, hey, grandma, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want? She was like, I don't want stuff. I have enough. I want time with you. Right. And she would always put that, like, let's go to an Angels game. She was a big Angels fan. Right? Let's go to an Angels game, or let's go to Watson's drugstore and have lunch, or, let's do things together. She was really big about spending time with her people, and really deflected the question that we were trying to force her into, which was like, what do you want? Meaning, what can I buy that will demonstrate, I love you, and also like that will fulfill some kind of need. And I don't think we were savvy enough at the time to really pick up at the degree to which she was really reframing our thinking about what you're digging into today, which is enough already. And we've got enough stuff. Like, it's really about those moments. And my sister, she's a faithful listener of this podcast. Thank you, Leah. She and her daughter would have once a month, they would have lunch with my grandmother. And she got a notification on Facebook that, reminded her, this many years ago, you were here with grandma, blah, blah, blah. And she got emotional about it, but she got to have that memory. Do you know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That memory brought back all those experiences, feelings, thoughts, the smile, the tears, the relationship, the love, the joy, the gratitude, all of that didn't happen when, unfortunately, there was a major fire in my grandparents' house. And that was the house where everybody went. We went on Christmases, we went on Father's Day, Mother's Day, like that was the house. So for this house to catch fire was a big deal. And as they're going through things, the stuff didn't evoke the same emotional response that my sister had when she saw that notification that brought her back to an experience she had with my grandmother. That just really kind of flooded me as you were talking and sharing about what your parents said, and ultimately your wisdom you're sharing with your daughter, which is enough already.
Enough already. Less stuff, more moments, less stuff, more experiences. And even that's relation with others and relationship with stuff, which is a reflection of one's relationship with oneself, right? Again, we've said in multiple episodes, the longest relationship you're ever going to have in your life is the one with yourself. And again, with all of the fillers of not wanting to feel the feels and filling the void, whether it's with physical, tangible stuff or food or alcohol or whatnot, having the space and grace of getting to know oneself is how you show up for yourself better, and then therefore with each other. Obviously, I'm a talker, as you can tell, and I love music. And when this was back in 2012, I was splitting with the large male orthopedic group. And that was I'll say it now. It's a traumatic experience. I'm not trying to be melodramatic, but it was a hurtful experience in that split. But then, as there always is blessings in disguise, it was also a momentous season of my life in opening up a new practice with my partner, who has become truly family to me. But that transition time was a flurry of emotions and self-doubt and insecurity and a tremendous test of faith. And one thing that got me through, that is a practice that I carry to this day, which is ironic that we're doing this audio podcast and people are probably listening, and we're grateful. They're probably listening on the drive.
Yeah.
But I would, in our short drives here in Hawaii, I would purposefully turn off the radio and drive in silence, so that can be either a moment with myself, my thoughts, my emotions, or in my life, those were strong moments of connection with God in prayer and reflection. And the growth that I had and the self-discovery that I had in those short moments of silence, as opposed to filling it with music, or I'll even say it ironically, a podcast, but those moments of silence were critical in my developing my strength and grounding myself for the journey ahead, which was very unsure and very uncertain. But it was the subtraction of noise and subtraction of filler distractions that allowed me to fill my cup. And I recognize that now, not only in my own practice, but even I have in the operating room, we have industry reps that come in to help us, in the operating room as we're using their implants and their devices. And this particular person, in between surgeries, and we are very close. We've talked about family and faith, and he's, along with this employed job, he also is a music director at his church. And so he loves music. And so in between cases, as we were just standing next to each other, and I was thinking, so I wasn't really talking, he then started to whistle. And again, I recognize that he, being a music director, loves music, but I couldn't help but mention to him, "Do you whistle all the time?" And he said, "Yeah, it drives my wife crazy, but yeah, I do whistle all the time." And I said, "Well, I mean, you whistle beautifully, and obviously you love music, but have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why do I always whistle? Do you feel uncomfortable with silence?" And he paused and he said, "I never thought about it that way, but yes, I absolutely feel uncomfortable with silence. So whether it's in a conversation where I have to feel like I have to fill it with a story or a joke or a commentary, or yes, in silence, I then fill it with music by whistling. I guess that's a part of a nervous tick of mine." And I actually challenged him. I challenge you to see if you can, for a week, keep yourself from whistling, or even not listen to music or anything during your drive. And I shared with him my stronger connection with my faith and with God during my rides with silence. So again, that's why I wasn't saying this as a means of judging him or condemning him. It was actually my sharing what I felt was beneficial to me personally, and especially in my personal relationship with myself and with my faith. And he, being a man of faith, I challenged him to consider recognizing and appreciating the stillness and the silence, as opposed to filling the void of silence and the void of stillness, and seeing that actually there is no void in stillness and there is no void in silence. There is actually a richness sometimes to being still, and a richness and a loud volume of silence.
Much as you were trying to do for Gracie and then do for your friend, somebody did that for me, that moment of, "Hey, have you considered?" Or let me just give you another perspective. So I think I've shared pretty openly my battle with my weight. And when I was a junior, I studied abroad. And it was prior to going abroad that I had hit the heaviest I had ever been in my life. I was 215 pounds, and I'm 5'9". So 215 pounds is a lot. In addition, I was pretty much thick, like everywhere. So you probably wouldn't have known that I was that heavy necessarily, but I could tell. Like, mobility was a little bit harder, joints were hurting, etc. The interesting thing about that, and why this connects with what you're saying, is that I didn't realize that because I was going through a process of coming out to myself and really accepting who I was, and then also trying to figure out being at a Catholic institution and being a member of a family of Catholic faith, being in a largely male-dominated family, and living in that world, and then also just with societal expectations about heterosexuality, et cetera, I was dealing with a lot and didn't realize until a friend shared with me her perspective that I was using food as an escape for what I was really struggling with, was just ultimately an acceptance of myself and just a love and compassion for myself. She was just as gracious as you were with your friend in saying, have you considered essentially how hard this is for you? And then now that there was somebody sitting next to me rather than across from me in kind of a combative way, somebody sitting next to me. And by leaning into the struggle that she saw me undergoing internally, not even about my weight, just internally, could then eventually get to the point where she could say, I see you, particularly in moments where it seems like you're battling with a lot, eating or drinking soda. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that perspective. And so I think the benefit of having somebody who feels safe with you enough to be able to share enough already, or we've got enough, can help those of us, sounds like all of us, who maybe don't recognize it for themselves, right? But that need somebody else to kind of give them a little bit of a different perspective or a wake up. And it was that perspective that allowed me to become more aware. And when I went to London, I took the opportunity to enjoy silence by walking as well. Now, you could say that maybe I supplanted this with exercise, but that wasn't my intention. It was, I'm living in an international city. I grew up from a relatively poor family. By God's blessings, I am equipped now to travel abroad. I don't get opportunities like this often. So let's take advantage of it. And really, it was a check of like, okay, if I feel like I want to eat a snack, what is that need right there? Right. So like, what was it trying to fulfill? Okay, let's consider like walking around and seeing the neighborhood and seeing London and seeing the people and living like without talking to anybody. Now, I know it sounds a little bit like I'm supplanting the need for food with exercise, which is its own thing. And you brought that up. I'm not saying it was necessarily that. It wasn't like I was trying to get exercise. It was, I was moving away from an emotional fill to be with myself and to be silent and to also have a moment and an experience. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. It's exactly the point.
Yeah.
Is rather than kind of numbing or blunting, you actually were living and experiencing. So instead of the fillers of food or alcohol or shopping or looking over the shoulders and what are the Joneses doing and let me keep up, enough already. Let's see what we have. To my parents again, with my parents saying, no, we have enough. What they not only said was we have enough, what they said is we have all that we want and more than we need. So we have enough. Perhaps that's what we all can try to do, especially as we're coming out of the pandemic and trying to rush back to this, back to normal. How about embrace the new normal from the lessons that we've learned and the kind of priorities and perspectives that we've gained from the pandemic, which is rather than looking at what we don't have and scarcity and lack and comparison to, what do the Joneses have? Yeah. Or also rather than filling a void that we don't want to feel or filling a empty space that we don't want to even acknowledge is there. Enough already. Look at what we have as opposed to what we don't have. Enough already. Less stuff, more moments, more memories, more experiences.
I was just talking with a friend of mine who has two children. They are 6 and 8 years old. And they were 6 and 8 when they went through the pandemic. Now they're 10 and 12. And my friend, the mother, was saying how she recognized how overscheduled her children were. And the pandemic really allowed them to have more time together as a family. So coming out of it, now this is her choice, right? Her choice was that they really learned to value the time that they could have together, having a meal together, sitting down and talking about their day and digesting what happened that day and the highs and the lows, the roses and the thorns, the fruits and the veggies. And she wanted to preserve that because it was such a beautiful awakening for her of, you don't need to have soccer and piano and karate and et cetera, et cetera. She kept some of those things because she believes in them for her children. But she did recognize that she was missing some of those moments and missing the opportunity to just be a family, which the pandemic really gave them. And
even the activities that she chose, it's like, again, addition by subtraction, because in recognizing which of the activities to keep, it actually put more like value and experience on those activities by reducing, addition by subtraction, all of the busyness. And I just have to tell you, you totally triggered me in recognizing something that I definitely used to do. I don't do as often, but clearly I still don't want to acknowledge it because I didn't even mention it. I kept mentioning food and alcohol and shopping. But yes, work and busyness. Yeah. That's exactly what we're talking about in terms of relish the time of being still. Or at least in being busy or being active, those are conscious choices, so that the energy and focus that you're putting on those activities puts you in a state of flow and a state of joy, as opposed to numbing ourselves and not wanting to recognize the voids that we have in our lives by being busy. That's truly, that is what a workaholic is. And the workaholic really isn't so much about, well, because I have to provide for my family. That's different. One would never call a single parent that has to work multiple jobs to provide, food on the table. That's not workaholism. That's necessary. But because it's necessary. But when we're talking about those that I don't mean to say just because that sounds judgmental, but those who choose to be busy and more because of that hedonic principle, that hedonic hamster wheel of moving the goalposts to be more successful and make more money and more salary and more prestige and more awards and more achievements. A lot of the times that's actually not because it's truly necessary, because one needs more money than the six figures one is already making, or one needs just one more accolade on their resume. It's because of feeling not enough and needs to be busier or needs to accumulate more in order to feel enough. Enough already. We are more than our possessions. We are more than our job titles. We are more than our salary. We are more than our accumulations. Enough already. Recognize all that we have. Recognize just what we need. Enough already. Be still. Enjoy. Be present. Be mindful.
Yeah. And I have to say, I not only fall prey to the same belief about working more means something, right? Well, they say working smarter, not harder. Like I tended to be the working smarter person. And then also I would get into the trap of the Joneses are here at 7:00 and they stay until 4:30. So I need to be here at 6:45 and stay until 4:45. So it wasn't just what the Joneses have. It was also what the Joneses do. The poor Joneses, man, they just get they just get blamed for everything.
Throwing shade on the Joneses. Sorry, everybody.
But the same thing of that comparative work ethic, the belief that if somebody is putting in more time, that means that they are more valuable, et cetera. Yeah. Rather than just saying, this is my job. I got my job done in the time that I needed to get it done. And then I leave and I am more than my work title. I know that I'm a work in progress with that for sure. I'm just going to put that out there.
We all are. We all are. We're you and I are not here in front of the microphone because we've got it all figured out. Yeah. These are epiphanies that we're not only having, but still actually struggling through, working through, relearning, unlearning. Again, that's why this podcast is a journey. It's not a curriculum.
I was traveling for work a couple of weeks ago, and the people that I was going to visit for work are lovely and gracious, and we end up having a lot of work dinners together. So there's a lot of laughter and moments and experiences, which is just wonderful. On one particular night, I found that I was by myself. I had dinner by myself, and I think my tendency would have been to order in and just sit in the comfort of my hotel room with the TV on or whatever, which is often the case. And I decided to challenge myself and go out to dinner by myself and not sit at the bar, but actually sit at a table. And then I really tried to put my phone away as well and just sit and enjoy a meal by myself. And it was really cute. There was a very lovely older couple sitting next to me, and the woman leaned over and she said, "Oh, honey, are you by yourself?" And I said, I am. She goes, "Well, you can join us."
Oh,
So lovely, right? And I said, "You are so sweet for the offer. I decided to take myself out on a date tonight." And she got the biggest giggle.
Go date yourself.
Yeah, go date.
I love it. Previous episodes for those new listeners, by the way. Yay.
I did. And I would say I'd ask myself out on a second date too. I don't know. We had a good time. But she was really cute. She was like, "Well, you got yourself a cute date." And that was really, really sweet of her.
That is so cute.
So cute. But I was sharing.
So true.
Well,
I mean that in terms of, you were with yourself. And again, the longest relationship we have in our lifetime is the one with ourselves. So better be a good one and better know that relationship as best as possible. Awesome.
But I like, that was a full-on decision, right? Because my tendency would have been to order Uber Eats or DoorDash or something to show up, and then I'm in the privacy of my own space. And I was like, no, I want to walk. I want to go and see the area. I want to try this restaurant. And walked in, and the host said, "How many?" And I said, "1." And the host was like, "Do you want to sit at the bar?" I said, "No, I would like a table." Right. And then all the things were like, the server comes over and she's just lovely, just beautiful, friendly, smiling. And she goes, "Are we waiting for somebody else?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "Okay, well, let me take all this stuff away." So she's like taking away the place settings and everything for the other person. And then at some point they needed the chair. So like, "Can we take this chair?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can take the chair." So it's like, "Hello, everybody, table for one." Like it couldn't have been. And it was wonderful. I was sharing with a friend that moment, and my friend said, "Oh, I could never go to a restaurant alone." Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Go date yourself.
Go date yourself. And I can't help but imagine, like, how much richer was that experience? You talking about, you're talking about and you're experiencing not only time with yourself, but then that lovely encounter with that woman inviting you and experiencing that generous act of invitation. What a richer experience that you had. Again, addition by subtraction, as opposed to, yes, we can frame it in a positive way of like, you want it to be in the privacy of your hotel room, but and privacy and boundaries is important too. But had you filled the time as a filler by turning on the TV and kind of mindlessly watching whatever is coming on, or channel surfing or whatnot, how much richer was your experience subtracting yourself and removing yourself from the hotel room and the remote control of the TV versus stepping out and experiencing, that moment of dating yourself?
Well, it became a story, became a memory. That wouldn't be probably even something that I would have remembered, because it would have just been a meal, perfunctory in the hotel room, etc.
And filler of the TV. Like, would you have remembered what you saw on the news if you were watching TV at that time, or which TV show you were watching at that time? That's where, again, being mindful and being present in the stillness of a moment. It's not just a filler or a space filler or a void filler. You're truly experiencing something. Even if we're going to be talking about truly experiencing something, enough already with pictures on your phone, right? And by you, I'm talking to myself too. I know that. I am like, oh, let me capture this moment. And it's just so funny how in capturing the moment, and so, of course, there are times that you want to capture a picture and it does evoke a memory later, but it has now become so reflective to make sure that we capture it so that we can then post it, for example, on social media, as opposed to truly being in the moment and experiencing and savoring all of the, I'll say it, sensuality, all of the senses of every moment. Be sensual, everybody. There's, eyes, ears, smells, touch, feel, everything about it. Let's all be sensual. Let's all be in the moment as opposed to filling the void, filling the silence. Enough already.
Yeah. On around 4th of July on social media, often people will post the videos of their fireworks shows or whatever they watched. And I saw this very funny meme that I think strikes at what you're talking about, which is no one's going to watch your firework video. And it's true. So put it down and just enjoy the show. And it's true. No one's going to watch your firework video. No one.
Somehow, though, everybody has to switch to YouTube and rewind just to watch Zachary say it. Your facial expression when you said it was just so crystal clear what the point of that meme was. It was just somehow it was perfectly captured. Nobody's gonna watch your it with like slight head tilt. Like, are you kidding? Nobody's going to watch your firework video. And it's true.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm saying this, my birthday is July 3rd. We literally celebrated my birthday every year with fireworks. I am a firework junkie. You put a firework show up, I turn into like 5 or 6-year-old Zachary all over again. I love fireworks. And so I am so guilty myself of recording those videos. I never go back and watch them, first of all. When I do, it's nothing like the real thing. So now I'm left with like the soggy version of the actual show, and it's really underwhelming. So I would just end up deleting it. And then if I share it, nobody watches it, and 2, like no one cares. So I sacrifice that moment of being there, feeling the fireworks,
sensuality of the moment.
Yes. So yes, no one's going to watch your fireworks video. And I say that because I was that person, and now I put my phone down and I just enjoy them.
Yeah.
Enough already.
Sensuality. To your story about the Sprinter camper van and the necessity to declutter, enough already. Declutter, purge the phones with all of the photos that you haven't looked back on, but save and treasure and cherish the photos you want to keep. But then purge, delete. Enough already with the emails. I love it when I come to a point where I do a massive purge of my inbox. Enough already.
To the point about declutter, since I've been seeing a number of these camper vans, I now go around my house and say, would this go into the van? And I've gotten rid of things already because I'm like, if it's not going to go in the van and I really haven't used it, and how long, why is it sitting here taking up space? And just that level of awareness to your point of, you gave Gracie just some recognition, some awareness of living in the moment and living from a place of gratitude that you have enough, and that enough is a choice. And your parents gave that to you. My grandmother gave that to us, right? We are giving that to all of you today, right? Which is just that moment of maybe looking around your house or just looking around your life and saying, do I have enough? Yes, because that's a choice, right? And am I filling my filling to avoid or to numb or to escape from something else? And if I am, how can I supplant that and actually come back to enoughness and come back to me, right?
It's so funny that you point, because that's exactly what I was just about to do, which is absolutely, there's enoughness, enough already. Enough is a choice in terms of things, food, alcohol, but there's also the enoughness of one's self, where sit in a place of enoughness, sit in a place of self-worth and self-compassion and self-value and self-love for a moment. And instead of being busy and filling with activities, and even filling good things too, but even filling with goals, just enough already. Take a moment to be with oneself, self-love, self-worth, self-value, self-compassion. You are enough. just as you are.
Period.
Period.
We love you.
We
I
love you. Thank you, everybody. And I love you. That silence was a wonderful silence, filled with a lot in that moment of silence, because it really hit home and came full circle.
I really did. Mwah.